I'm going to tip this up just a smidge. Good morning, everybody who's joining us. We'll be starting momentarily. We're just going to give it a few minutes to let people join in before we get rolling with today's presentation. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today here at the Phelps Mansion Museum. We're continuing our series of what are usually Saturday presentations, but we had to move today's to Sunday this week because of a scheduling conflict. But we will be back here next Saturday at 12 p.m. As part of New York State's Path Through History Weekend. We're going to be having author Jim Majori here to give a presentation about the history of baseball in the greater Binghamton area. And then on Sunday, June 28th at 3 p.m., we have a virtual chamber music recital concert with piano and cello with Pej Reitz and Hakan Tega. And so that will be at 3 o'clock and will be also live on our page. That concert will be on a Sunday, like we would normally do our chamber music concert series. So today I'm joined by Mark Dickinson, who's to my left, and the two of us are here to talk about the history of the magic lantern. We're going to just give you a quick history about the magic lantern itself, and then we have some examples of different types of lanterns, and Mark has a special little magic lantern show that he's going to do for you guys to kind of wrap it all up. So if you have any questions, you can certainly leave them in the comments, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. There's no one behind the camera right now, so we can't see the questions. Yeah, so we'll just get started.
Yeah, let's do it.
We're practicing social distancing here. We are 6 feet apart. You see we have this large movie screen here to keep us separated. And so we're practicing safety as well, so that we can get ready to open back up here in hopefully a couple of weeks. So with that being said, we'll talk about the magic lantern. The magic lantern was the first projector and was actually the precursor to what we would think of as movies today. The earliest camera or projector goes back to around 1650, and it was invented by a prominent Dutch scientist named Christian Huygens. It soon became a major learning tool and also a showman's instrument. The magic lantern basically projected images from hand-painted slides. Later on, they had transfer or printed images onto these glass slides. Some of the slides even had mechanics, like sliding pieces, cranks to animate the slides, and so make the show a little bit more interesting, almost like watching an animated movie. The magic lantern played a very important part in the Victorian society. Religious and temperance lectures were given, but the lantern was also used in education for the demonstration of scientific principles and to relay the latest news of world events. Early on, these projectors were lit with candles or oil lamps, producing very dim projections, as you could imagine. Improvements in lighting took the form of the argon lamp from the 1790s. Then you had limelight around the 1820s, and then electric light came into play in the 1860s, and then of course you had the incandescent electric lamp. So the magic lantern's popularities peaked during the late 1800s and early 1900s, and were still in use right up until about World War II. However, with the popularity of film and the creation of the movie projector, as we know it today, the magic lantern faded away.
So I'm just going to show you a couple examples over here of the magic lantern. Now it became a very popular toy. So these are some toy models here that were popular at the time. They had kerosene lamps here, and then this one even had, this one was later 1800s, it even had a fader, so children could put on their own show with the magic slides. What they do is they take these slides and tell a story, and a lot of these were numbered so you could follow the story in order as it was supposed to go. And as Joe mentioned, you know, they came up with different variations of ways to animate them, and like here's an example. This has the hand crank, so you could actually create a moving image. So basically it was early form of film, which, you know, towards the end of the 1800s, that became the next wave of the future of animation and art and visual. Here's another example of a magic lantern. This is from the 1880s. This is a Williams, Brown, and Earl magic lantern. They were out of Philadelphia, and this has a light bulb added to it, so this was electric. You had the reflector in the back to allow more illumination to go through. The double lenses here, you put your slides into here, and of course it came out through the lens, and you can adjust and focus with that right there by either moving the bellows back and forth or adjusting the lens. Here's an old Edison bulb that was used. This is the one that was from this one. And of course they put on big shows. When the magic lanterns first came out, they were actually kind of small and of course illuminated by either gas or kerosene or oil, and a gentleman would travel around and put on shows for small families and whatnot, you know, for a meal or a place to stay or a couple coins, you know. And here's some examples of the slides, which I think Joe is going to talk about now, right? So we'll come back to those and we'll let Joe handle this part of the show.
So in order to better understand magic lanterns, you have to understand how they work. And Mark kind of touched on a few of the different examples that we hear. But a magic lantern consists of 7 functional sections. You have the lamp, the reflector, the condensing lens, the lens tube, the body, the base, and in the older ones, the smokestack. The lamp was the sole source of illumination, which often came from burning oil or gas, burning piece of calcium, or later electricity, like Mark had showed you the electric one down the end of the table there. But these the reflector reflected light from the lamp towards the condensing lens, which focuses the light onto the slide being projected. The lens tube served to magnify the illuminated slide so that projected images from 6 to 12 feet wide could be obtained. The body of the projector is often made completely of metal, because you can imagine even with the oil or an old Edison lamp, they would get very, very hot. And so metal was the only way to go. Let's see. The base lifts the magic lantern above the surface of a table. This is important because the body becomes intensely hot, like I just said, from the illuminating light, and the base helps to prevent table burns. And then finally, the smokestack serves to vent the smoke coming from the lamp so that the smoke doesn't accumulate inside the lantern and cause a fire, basically.
And obscure your view.
And obscure your view, yes. It get awfully smoky inside the projector. So, do you want to? Well, I guess you already showed them the parts about the lantern.
Yeah, we can review if you want.
Do a little review.
Yeah, so here's what Joe was talking about. You got the different parts of the lantern here. This would be your light source, the kerosene lamp. And you had a little window here so you could see to make sure your candle was still burning. You got your smokestack here. Then you have your lenses, and this would be the area where you put your slides. And this lens, actually, you turn to focus it. And this also had, like I mentioned before, a moving fader, which was quite innovative at the time. And you can see these small ones. They also had the reflector in the back and a little kerosene lamp. And this thing is really tiny. It's probably about 9 inches tall, 8-9 inches tall. But this is more of a high-end model here. And this also this was converted from kerosene to electric. So you had the little window here so you could see, make sure your flame was still going. And the smokestack was originally here, and it comes out the side. The heat or smoke comes out this side here. But yeah, so that's that. I'll hand it back over to Joe here.
All right, so hand-painted or photographic glass slides are typically inserted into the projector horizontally between the condensing lens and the lens tube through metal runners at the top and bottom. A skilled projectionist can move them quickly, and if the slide contains images of progressive motion, the projected image will appear to move. Some slides can create complex, constantly moving displays, demonstrating that the magic lantern is not simply a still image projector. And you can see behind us here we have an example of a slide in one of the magic lanterns right now. This is an inanimate slide. It doesn't move, but this particular lamp that we're using was kind of it's been a little bit updated with a brighter LED lens so that we have a brighter, more crisper image. If you were even using the older lamps, you still wouldn't get probably as good as what we have right now on the screen. But you can see, the detail is just amazing on that piece there. So, does anybody have any questions or anything at this point, or just kind of watching along?
Hello from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Hello.
Let's see. Hello from Mint Hill, North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Yeah. No questions so far.
Okay. All right. So then, of course, we talk about the slides themselves. Originally, the pictures were hand-painted on glass slides. Initially, figures were rendered with black paint, but transparent colors were also used soon after. Sometimes the painting was done on oiled paper, and usually black paint was used as a background to block superfluous light, so the figures could be projected without distracting borders or frames. Many slides were finished with a layer of transparent lacquer, but in a later period, cover glasses were also used to protect the painted layer. Most handmade slides were mounted in wood frames with a round or square opening for the picture. After 1820, the manufacturing of hand-colored slides started, often taking use of, they called it decalcomania transfers. Hope I said that word right. Many manufactured slides were produced on strips of glass with several pictures on them and rimmed with a strip of glued paper. The first photographic lantern slides, called hyalotypes, were invented by the German-born brothers Ernst Wilhelm and Frederick Langenhelm in 1848 in Philadelphia and patented in 1850. Apart from sunlight, the only light sources available at the time, especially in the 17th century when these projectors first came about, were candles and oil lamps. Like we touched upon earlier, these were very inefficient and produced very dim projected images. With the invention of the argon lamp in the 1790s, that helped to make images brighter, and then with the invention of limelight in the 1820s, it made them much brighter. And then of course with the intensely bright electric arc lamp in the 1860s, that eliminated the need for the combustible gases or hazardous chemicals that were being used to light these projectors. And eventually the incandescent electric lamp further improved safety and convenience. However, it didn't necessarily improve brightness. So, but these would be, you could use them in your home. Middle, upper class families would purchase them to put on shows in their homes. They could be taken as a way of traveling around. So people would gather in theaters, much like we do a movie theater, and watch a show. They would add sound effects, fog machines, or fog, it's probably not a fog
smoke,
machine,
yeah.
but smoke, to make the show a little bit more exciting and realistic, and just kind of add a dramatic flair rather than just looking at a still image. You can also imagine too that these projectionists, in order to keep the show moving, would have to be really good and really quick at getting the next slide in to keep the story going along. As Mark will probably show you here in a minute, though, the projector that we're using right now has a wooden piece that contains 2 slides, so that you could move from one slide to another quickly, and probably ideally while you're on one slide you could swap out the other slide and then slide it back over, so you would just keep it going. But you'd really have to make sure your slides were in order before you started your show. Otherwise, there was really no going back on that. Do you want to do your show now?
Yeah, I'll show a couple of these slides over here.
Okay, Mark's going to show you a couple examples of the slides, and then we'll do a slideshow for you.
So here's some examples of the slides that he was talking about. This is, where's my light here? All right. So this is a hand-painted slide. It's got the moving part on it here. If Joe would be so kind to, you want to move that little piece there so you can see?
Oh yeah.
This one is a moving piece, so you can see that there. I don't know if you can actually see there we go. That's a little better. There we go. So that's the moving slide. And then you have what he had mentioned was the haliotype, which is also what's on display on the screen. It was just basically a photograph put on the glass there. There we go. That's a little better. So you can see that there. And then you have the, this would be a transfer slide where they would just transfer an image onto the glass. And you could, as you can see by there's Punch and Judy, which was a popular puppet show, and they also made a popular magic lantern show. And then he had mentioned a series of images on the slide. This is for a toy magic lantern, and you can see all the different images that tell each one will be a little part of the story,
So
depending on what it is.
Along.
Yeah, so you just move it along, and the slides were usually numbered in the bottom corner or something like that, so you could make sure everything went along with the storyline. And then here's a transfer slide here too. I don't know if you can see that one too well, but it's a scene in a bar here. And, you know, I'll throw that up on the screen so you guys can check it out. So, as Joe was mentioning here, I'm just going to pop around here real quick. So, as Joe mentioned, it became popular, and I mentioned before, at first they traveled around small, but then, of course, they started making them bigger and better, and entrepreneurs took advantage of the whole situation, so they could actually, you know, show them off in theaters and you know, larger places. And one popular version of the Magic Lantern show was called the Phantasmagoria. And what that was basically a horror show. People were fascinated with death and the beyond and afterlife, and these guys would put on these outstanding performances. Like he had mentioned, they would project onto smoke, and what they would do is they would take oils and drop it onto a fire to create the smoke, and then they would cast the image so it looked like a spirit, you know, coming through from the beyond. This might have been an image used in a Phantasmagoria show because it shows angels, and a lot of it were angels and demons, and even famous dead people, like Napoleon was a famous one that people like to see. And what was the king that got his head cut off? King Richard III? Or whatever?
I don't know.
I can't remember. But deceased kings and queens were popular, and they would do all sorts, put on these amazing stage shows. They'd have sound effects. You'd have somebody in the background shaking metal to create thunder and doing all sorts of stuff. They would have music playing. The popular instrument used was the glass harmonica, which was a series of glasses that you rub your fingers on. I think like a half glass of water that you do the sounds. It's basically the same thing. I think Benjamin Franklin invented it, but it created an eerie sound, and that was quite popular to go with the Phantasmagoria. But they did all sorts of shows. They did Christmas shows. They did songs. You know, so you go to a dance hall, they would post the song lyrics so everybody could sing along. Another popular one was a Dickens Christmas Carol, and that was a famous story, popular story that they also transferred into a Magic Lantern show. And Dickens himself was a big fan of the Magic Lantern. So basically what it was, you know, they had solid pictures, and then they invented the moving pieces with different cranks and whatnot. And basically what it was you told a story, and you told a story with the images. So the Magic Lanternist would have to become sort of a showman, if you will, because he'd have his hands full. He'd have to, you know, change slides, move slides, create sound effects. You know, sometimes he would have a crew, you know, have music. They would use Pepper's Ghost, which is basically an old stage technique to create spirits by reflecting an image. So you could have one camera here, another camera backstage, reflecting an image onto glass so it looked like a spirit was appearing. You could have a whole crew of people if you had a theater. So they'd have all sorts of tricks to make the show enticing and exciting, like moving the camera back and forth to make it look like whatever the image was coming at you or leaving. And it was a lot of fun. And there's a place down in Lancaster that still puts on Magic Lantern shows, and there's also a traveling Magic Lantern show. If you get a chance to check it out, I highly recommend it. They're a lot of fun. And I'm going to do a little story for you now. So hang in there for a second, and let me get things together, and we'll do something. I'll show you a couple slides first. So you got this heliotype here, and then this was another heliotype. Of course, it's a photograph. And then I'll leave that there for a second while I swap it out here. Also, another popular thing was to show art and other pieces like that. So here is an actual death and mourning photo, or a painting of a child mourning the loss of his sibling. Another thing too was popular news of the day. So you go a lot of these shows, they would show you advertisements. They would show you these stories from news right off the pages. So here you got the Spanish-American War here. And here's another image from the Spanish-American War. As I get it slipped in here. I can. Huh? All of these images have to slide into a wooden case and then into another wooden case. So I'm not as fast as a professional would be probably, but I just want to show you. Well, I'm going to skip this one, I guess. But then, oh yeah, here we go. And then this one here, this is from, I think, the fire of New Orleans, right here. And then another popular form of art too was scenery, and this is probably something from maybe the Hudson Valley School here. A nice, lovely painting of scenery. And then, as I had mentioned too before, songs were popular, especially patriotic songs and whatnot. This is from, what was it, America or America the Beautiful, right? So this is from America the Beautiful here. Oops, I got it backwards. See, one of the issues is make sure you get the images in the right spot. There we go. So someone would either play along and the crowd would sing. So you have the lyrics underneath for Purple Mountain Majesties. So that was just another example of some of the things you could see as well. And then I'm going to switch over here. Give me 1 second. Oops. All right. So I'm not as crafty or smooth as some of the professionals here, but I'd mentioned the slides with multiple images on them. So this is something that was out of the children's magic lantern. Oops, excuse me a second. So you got different, so you could travel the world. You know, you got cathedrals, you got, you know, special buildings, and you see how they're all numbered. Of course, this is backwards. But, you know, so they could tell their story. Here's another one here that has people, faces, and different emotions. You know, so you got a friar there doing some snuff. You got a gentleman sticking his pinky in the air. A lady saying okay, and another one there. So, and then you also have some other stories. Remember, this is the goose. Oh no, yeah, what is it? The stork. So this is the stork bringing the baby. The baby grows up. He leaves the baby at the door, etc. You know, so.
Well, those ones are smaller because they're made for these smaller projectors.
Yeah, these are all for these little ones were for the children's ones, which I was kind of holding them up there. So, so let's pretend we were going to put on a little show. So these are all slip slide magic lantern slides. So they're hand painted and they're 2 pieces with the actual slides in them. But say we were to tell a story. So you have a beautiful young lady. You know, she's starting to drift off to sleep. You know, she's starting to get lucid, and she's starting to fall into dreamland. And then, you know, she's startled awake by a noise, and she looks around her room, see what's catching her attention, and she sees out of her window a bat flapping high in the sky, spitting curses and jinx the town, so everyone will have bad luck. So next thing you know, there's a gentleman reading his daily reports. All of a sudden, his hat catches on fire. And then you have a gentleman here taking his pig for a walk, and it's getting restless. And it runs from his arms and runs away from him. And he chases him away down the street. Then the bad luck continues as a gentleman offers to give the supply man down in the basement a hand. And all of a sudden, he gets hit in the head with a flying board, knocks him unconscious. And his day is just going horrible already. And then you have another man coming down. He's shaving, getting ready for the next day. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, something startles his cat. And the cat jumps on his back. And he probably cuts his nose off, but we won't get into the details on that one. But they had a more of a sense of humor about life. So these were entertaining. Then you have, you know, the soldiers standing guard, ready at attention, drum roll. something comes out of the air and cuts off their head. And that was the end of the soldiers. Oh God, that was horrible. What a terrible ending. So as you can see, you had to be an entertainer. You had to have some sort of imagination to put on a show and to keep people entertained. It was a lot of fun doing a little story like this. Obviously, I don't have the skills of a true magic lanternist, but we hope you enjoyed this little look at the magic lantern. And are there any questions, Joe?
No, just some comments.
Nice.
Watching from Endwell. Somebody wants to go to a magic lantern show.
Nice. They're down, like I mentioned, Lancaster. I'll post a link when I get back if you want to check the place out. I think they're currently closed because of COVID, but I think I saw they were going to be resuming July for the Magic Lantern shows.
So if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the comment box, and we'll do our best to answer them for you. Otherwise, just a quick recap for those who are joining us next Saturday, June 20th at 12 p.m. We'll be hosting author Jim Majori, and he will be discussing his book called The History of Baseball in Greater Binghamton. That's not the title of the book, but that's the subject of the book. And he'll talk more about his book and offer a presentation. Baseball has a long-standing history here in Binghamton, and so we thought that'd be a good presentation to give here while we're waiting for baseball to start. And then Sunday, June 28th at 3 p.m., like I mentioned earlier, we'll have a virtual chamber recital with Pej Wrights and Hakan Tega, piano and cello. They'll be performing several selected pieces and also talking about the music in between sets. So it'll be a really great time. So we hope you can join us for those coming up. The events are posted on our Facebook page and also our website, so you can keep up to date on everything that's happening here. And hopefully we'll be able to open the building back up to the public very soon. So until then, thanks for joining us.
Yeah. And if you want to learn more about the Magic Lantern, there are a lot of great resources and some really cool videos of some actual Magic Lantern shows, which we could throw in the links if you want to check out, because they're really fun and fascinating.
A lot of good ones on YouTube.
Of course, you know, we realize everybody's hurting for cash these days, but we are a nonprofit organization, and we rely on tours and programs and
Donations.
Yes. So we have not been open, but if you would like to donate, we would greatly appreciate it.
Website?
You can visit our website at phelpsmansion.org and click on donate, or become a member. You know, we hope to do a lot more of these live feeds as well, just to keep things rolling. And of course, we hope to get programming back here in the late summer, early fall. And hope you're all staying safe. Love your brother. And until next time, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.